So this is an actual model that we created for the last Terminator film, and it was a fun project. It was a big project. And it was one of those sort of interesting ones where you'd be surprised how little they give us to go off of. We had to build this T600 model, which from a distance is okay. It's sort of weird looking. It's kind of cool. This was me and 3 other guys actually for quite a long time building. And it's funny because in our sort of 3D world, you know, we'll sit there, you know, for days making like this. What is all this? These wires have to go somewhere. They don't have to, but in this case it was a hero, what we call a hero model. So we have to spend a hero amount of time on it. And then you'll spend all day just in this little area. And then you'll sort of zoom out and go, oh my God, what did I do? It's a little overwhelming because we have so much more to go. They never give you enough time. This was fun to work on, and they sort of wanted us to build it in a way where it was a robot, but the way the wiring and the electronics went, it was almost mirrored the muscle striation and stuff like that. Which sort of made it cool in between. Less rugged like the earlier model. Now we're starting to get sort of human looking even without the skin. I got stuck putting all the wires in and stuff. But and of course every time you see it in the movie you never see the wires, everything's in shadow, and you wasted all of your time. But you never know when you're building it, so you just build it as good as possible. This thing actually has a lot of stuff inside, so if you buy it, sort of had a combination of things going on. I mean, the only direction we got was we want to see some moving parts inside. Well, okay, and that sort of turned into us making a lot of things, sort of like watches and gears and stuff like that. So we would develop these little things, which don't look very interesting here, but these little components would be ticking back and forth and moving and gyrating. Some of them lit up. These are sort of like basic ribs.
Can you upload this to the 3D printer?
I'm not even supposed to have this. I completely stole it. Other times we get inspiration from car parts. Maybe we look at a carburetor, we build something. In fact, the only reference we got from this whole model was they sent us the inside of like a 2013 model Volvo engine. Just the engine bay. They're like, here, it's kind of interesting.
While we're waiting, say hi to Hunter. John says hello. But Stallion says hello.
In other cases, we're coming up with things like we try to do things. I mean, it's all BS. It's all shenanigans. We just need stuff to look for. You know, a lot of it doesn't actually go to something functional, but we think of things like, well, we need to make lungs. And so a really talented artist named Julian Sarmiento made this. This was supposed to be sort of like a lung or a filter along the side. Sort of where lungs might be, but obviously on the side. We sort of take some anatomical cues and some mechanical cues. Another one which is really interesting is the hunter killer model, which is total BS. The whole underside. For sure, it's one of the craziest models to this day I've ever seen. But the underside of it's really funny. So this is the ship that you see when they're Terminators have these 100-kilo models. They're always flying around scanning and stuff. So the underside is just pretty nice. And this file by itself is like 600 meg or something. Just to open this one. But you can start seeing some of the tricks, right? Like this little thing right here. It's literally a car engine from like a truck that we took to a different movie. You just turn it upside down and like just stick it in. Just as long as you're getting something to catch shadows and light, you make it look interesting. You only need a few things to be functional. Maybe a gun comes out from something. Well, okay, well that mechanically needs to work. But really everything else, we're just lying. We're lying to you constantly. Sometimes we can save time, other times not. This is another sort of hero model, so it's one of those challenging as a modeler. You know, when someone says, we need you to build a plane, or we need you to build a ship, and by the way, every panel on it needs to be modeled. It's like, oh my god. It's like, oh, it's almost too much. You know, every single one of these little lines have to be hand modeled. In other cases, most cases, we cheated. We use bump maps, and spec maps, and we have displacement maps, or cheats that don't really rely on us having to spend so much time modeling for the techniques. Yeah.
How many hours do you think went into that ship in total?
The ship, okay, well, I'll say this. From beginning to end, the ship that we just made for Hunger Games, I'm working on the current Hunger Games film now. The previous film, there was a lot of close-up shots where it landed, came out of the back. 6 months. I mean, it's completely ridiculous. We modeled it in probably, the bulk of the modeling was probably, let's say, 30 to 45 days. And then we have to UV it, and then the texturing was, I mean, they can texture it, and then you get notes from the director, and, but it's a 6-month thing from beginning to end. It's just the amount of time it costs. It's shot to see through. So when you see some of this stuff, these are some of the craziest models. A lot of the stuff really isn't particularly high res. In a lot of cases, games are way more high res than film. It's just that the lighting and the compositing makes everything in film look way cool. The shading, all. These are sort of a few crazy hero models. The average model, I mean, maybe we spend a week on something, which should be pretty normal. Sometimes 2 days. I actually just posted a video of the Making of this guy. It's sort of sped up on my fan page on my Facebook page. So if you guys want to watch my video, I think my channel's right here. Yeah, this is just sort of, this is what I do in my free time. My free time is me, I go home and I play video games and I sculpt. That's what I do. I train, video games, and sculpt. Well, that's funny. So I barely went to college. I originally signed up to go to the Illinois Institute of Art, and it wasn't a bad experience. It was nice, but I was sort of getting into an industry that didn't exist yet. The educators weren't quite sure what they were educating on. The software was still really brand new, and I just sort of figured I was poor. I was really poor. But there was a time at one point in college where I was working full-time, schooling full-time, and living in my car. Fortunately, at that time. So for me, school was a real financial challenge. So after 16 months, I left after I got my associates. Which is interesting because now we're in this sort of age of technology increasing so fast. Something to keep in mind is that it's very likely on year 1 of college, whatever software you're using won't exist when you're So you might have spent $100,000 putting software that's wrong. Or it's so different 4 years later that it doesn't matter. The software that I use now is behind 100% sometimes. And you have to be. You might know all that software. Every single time they do an update, it changes everything. Especially for 3D artists. The way you do compositing, lighting, modeling, all it changes. It changes every 2 years. And so whatever you knew 2 years ago is very irrelevant every 20 years. You just have to go home and sort of like what you're doing. When there's a software update, download it and play with it at home. Companies won't pay you necessarily to figure that out. A lot of times you're forced to figure it out on the job, which is great because you get paid to learn. For me, ZBrush is really difficult to learn. It's sort of a weird, wonky program. Mudbox is very easy to learn, but for whatever reason, the marketing, the industry didn't embrace it in the same way that they did ZBrush. So while ZBrush is a much easier tool to use, versus Mudbox is a much easier tool to use, ZBrush, you have to suck sometimes. You're like, in Mudbox, I can do some 5 minutes. And in ZBrush, of course, it's been 2 hours. But it's like it with a lot of things. Like the industry, for whatever reason, has embraced Autodesk Maya. It's the worst modeling application on the market. There's no worse modeler. There are free modelers like Blender that are way better than Autodesk Maya. I used to publish a DVD using a $90 piece of software called Silo, which no longer exists. Max is great, XSI is great. Maya is literally the worst tool. And you actually, there's just no way around it. So you get around all the hiccups and stuff. Maya's good for other things, which is not Maya. It's good animators, it's a good multi-tool package. I'm not really going to do any live stuff, I'm going to sort about something, but this is sort of the stuff that I do. I go home, I play with this stuff, I saw the movie Blade, I came home, I sculpted this the same night. When I was going to school, this would have taken, well, first of all, you wouldn't have been able to do it. This would have been possible to be like, how do I build this thing with polygons? And now, because of tools like ZBrush and Mudbox, you can just go be an artist and just move and match points around and get shapes like that. Like me, most of what I do when I'm sculpting is just matching and pulling shapes out of the block until I see something in my head that looks interesting to me. And then I sort of keep adding to that. Like a painting, you make all the big shapes first. You don't do the eye detail first on a place. You sort of make the shape, you make the tone. Sculpting is the exact same thing. It's all big stuff. And for me, I like silhouettes. I very rarely ever do people because I don't think people are interesting. What I like is maybe I look at a guy like this. And I think about him as a silhouette. So I think about him like this. And I think, well, is that an interesting sort of silhouette? So in my head, I'm just seeing these outlines. Well, that's sort of interesting. And then as it progresses, I keep going and keep going and keep going until I come up with, in my head, sort of personality or what is it. And then you get really, especially with creature design, I love because you can take little anatomical cues like, well, it sounds weird to think about, but like, well, how does this animal drink? How does it breathe? Maybe the way it breathes is actually a feature of its anatomy that you can see visually. The movie Cloverfield was an amazing example of that. And that big sack underneath its belly with all the eggs. And it was a big part of the way it moves and animated and walked was this big giant thing underneath its screen. Godzilla, we did a lot of work on not the Godzilla creature, but it's sort of the other creatures. Same thing, you sort of figure out, well, what makes this animal tick? Avatar was one of the best examples of that recently. Where they sort of created a world where all the animals have more than 4 legs, multiple eyes. You think about, well, what environment is it in? Is it in a cold environment? Okay, well, it probably has fur. Is it a hot environment? Well, it probably doesn't have fur. So you can't just go willy-nilly and think of crazy things like, let's put something with reptile skin in a cold environment who looks like it has webbed toes, but lives in the ground. Like, that's not, you're not really being creative, you're just not being thoughtless. You need to be a little smarter about the direction you're going in your design. And understanding the environment that something in can give you a lot of social cues. And really cool things like porcupines are slow. So would it make sense for them to have any defense in front of their body? No, they're slow. Everything's going to come up from behind. So they evolved to be very dangerous to approach on the map. They have all these quills in them. So if you design a creature that's not particularly fast, well, he probably has some sort of defense mechanism behind it. Likewise, cheetahs are very fast, right? They don't need anything whatsoever behind them because they're faster than you. But what's in front of them? Well, they got these big giant claws and big fangs that kill things with their face, right? So you think about all these things. Right? You think about how does something move? Would it have balance? Well, would adding a tail give it more balance? Okay, well, let's add a tail. Does the tail speed it up or slow it down? Slows it down. Okay, well, let's think of dinosaurs that have long tails. Well, they had spikes on the back of their tail. So reference is your friend, creativity is your friend, and then thinking about things in their environment will absolutely guide you towards some of these nice final lines. Yeah. This is actually interesting, because there's a big lie that everyone tells you. And the lie is that, before I was in film, I bought into it. The lie is that games are low poly, film is high poly. That is the biggest lie ever told. So, when you're watching these clips that I play, when you're watching, maybe Iron Man's flying into a city or something like that. What everyone's noticing is Iron Man. They go, wow, it's a very high poly model. True. That's one model. What you're not paying attention to is all the cars on the ground, trash cans, the street lamps. Josh, can we get some birds in the background? We need dust falling from the thing. We need rubble. We need rocks. It's all fake. So 99% of what you're looking at is lower res environments with one hero model that one guy made and no one else built it. And everything else you're going to work on for next year isn't a particularly high power model. All the people walking around in the background, it's all fake, it's all digital. You just build all of them. And most of them are lower res than a lot of the game characters. The average game character is way more high quality than the average film, unless it's a hero film. But most things aren't hero. Most things are being seen as some sort of reasonable distance. One of the other things that's worth pointing out is game artists, hands down, are the best character and creature modelers I've ever seen. Hands down. And the reason is, when you're a film artist, this is something to think about if it's a career you want to pursue. One of the things when you're doing what I'm doing now, when I go to work Monday, I don't really know what I'm going to be building. Might be a weapon, might be a gun, might be trash can, might be her, might be 90% of the time you're building rocks and rubber. Those things in Hollywood movies are always industry. You spend a large percentage of your life making rocks. No one tells you that. Everyone just thinks Godzilla. Really, you're sculpting rocks for 6 months. So my skill set is to be a bit diverse. Even though I have a particular skill set for creatures, it's something I rarely get to do. In games, they partition things differently. They have character artists, and then they have environment artists. So if you're a character artist in games, you are doing characters 8 hours a day, 365 days a year, that's it. And because of that, they get so good at it, and they're so talented at it. They know all the tricks, they're the best at all the software, no one's faster than them doing it, they crush it. I have friends in the game, I was in game for 10 years ago. I still have friends in it, and the stuff that they post every day is like, it's not like this. So I have this list of like people I want to assassinate, because they're like ruining the curve for everybody. Like, this stuff is so good. You know? And I know I can't do that good now, because I have to do 5 people. Yeah, the other question. Well, I'll say this. People would be stunned if they knew how much CG was in stuff that they think there's no CG. It doesn't matter if it's the most silly romantic comedy all the way up to Avatar. Because if Ashton Kutcher is walking with his new girlfriend in his romantic comedy, someone watching that in dailies is going to go, can we get some cars moving in this background? Okay, so we got to get some cars in the background. We have some doves fly out on the kids. Yeah, can we have some God rays coming in from the side, maybe. I mean, literally, there's not a single frame of film that doesn't have CG. The movie Green Zone, which was, it's on here, it's one of the most heavily CG films we've done. It's insane. And most of it's just Matt Damon walking around. But then you're like, oh, he's in a soundstage. And the whole desert is doing it. And then the helicopter landing is doing it. And that's, I mean, it's 90%. I mean, it's insane. Yeah. Even stuff like Jennifer Lawrence. So I've been doing the last 300 games. There's stuff that just cracks me up still. So in the 2 films ago, she's walking out, she's going down the avenue for tributes, and she's holding hands with the actor, and they're filming them from the side, from behind. They're on a carriage ride. He's way shorter than her. So they had him stand on a box that's about this tall. The problem is now he's standing on a box and he's tall, but it's the same head height, so it looks good. But he's standing on a box. So I had to build a digital version of him from the waist down. And then, because anatomically you can't just make someone's shins longer. So we sort of had to average out, like, where's his knee going to be in this weird new super torso we're doing. And then we just sort of put some shadows around it. But yeah, we had to remove the box, make him taller. And it ends up being a thing that you do for 2 months because they hired a short actor. The best example of that ever is Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt in it's a slightly older film. It's a vampire movie. Yes. And completely true story. So they're shooting Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise walking towards the camera, which is stuff. They're having dialogue. It's a long sequence. Fairly long. And obviously, Brad's not, Tom's not the tallest guy, right? So they dug a trench into the ground so that Brad could walk in the trench next to Tom so that they would be at the same time. I mean, we're always doing stuff like that. Jennifer Lawrence for the last 200 films. Her hair is short. She's got extensions on. So she's got a wig half the time or extensions, and people are constantly fixing the sort of line here or sort of making her hips more aesthetically pleasing in the shot, and everything's, it's all shenanigans. It's pretty fun. Or maybe they're having to break out that line. Well, you can't have the next scene have 3 zits that weren't there previously. You got to remove it. It's insane. Yeah. It's all fake. What's really funny is, so you'll see, like, so Thor, the last Thor film, I was working on that. And I still love movies. You know, you can hear about it, I talk about it. I love movies. It's not any less interesting because I understand the magic behind it anymore. It's more fascinating to me than ever. And it's funnier than ever because we'll get a shot of the main guy in Thor who's got his hammer, and he's just standing like on the table like this, and there's like some soft pillows that lay behind him, and he's just in a room. There's a bunch of people texting, holding a microphone, and he'll be like, ah! And they're like, cut! And he goes back to his trailer, and it looks so dumb. You're like, there's no way this is gonna look cool. By the time we're done, he's jumping 20 feet higher than he was, he's landing on the ground, we're making this arm bigger, the cake's blowing because the real one didn't blow the right way. We can do the digital cape, fine, we'll remove the real one, we'll put a digital cape in now, make it flow. Can we get some wind on his hair? Fine, we'll make some digital hair. And the whole thing's fake. The hammer hits, now the ground crumbles, and then goes, oh, it's so amazing. And I was like, I did all of this. And we did nothing. Yeah.
So at what point are the actors just to move on? Wouldn't it just be easier just to produce friends?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, right? And it's the same question we've always gotten for the last, so I'm 17 years in. We've gotten that question since day one. I remember when Character Studio came out, which, again, software that no longer exists. And you would simply place footsteps on the ground, and anything you rig would just go through. There was these pre-made biped characters. And people used to go, well, riggers aren't going to have jobs anymore. It's completely insane. You're just going to plug in where you want things to go. You're going to use pre-existing pop cycles and motion capture. We have gotten very close. Weta Digital in New Zealand is the best studio. No one's better than them. No one's even close. Personally, I think they should have gotten the Oscar for Planet of the Apes. As challenging as it is to do black holes and stuff like that, if someone says, we need you to do 200 monkeys, they have to be photorealistic, they have to talk, they have to emote, we need to feel for them, they need to be furry, and by the way, it's going to be raining most of the time. It's like the worst thing ever. So they are the black belts of making the most realistic humans and everything possible. And still, the problem is it costs $500 million to make Avatar. And it doesn't cost $500 million for someone to just have it. You know? And at the end of the day, no matter how real and how much money you spent making a digital character, even if you do everything perfectly, you just equal what you would have had if you had somebody who did it perfectly. The only thing, in my opinion, that you get is things like an Avatar or creatures that are, you know, they're humanoid, but they're not. And those sell. You can sell those to people. Davy Jones in Pirates of the Caribbean. Looks good, it looks real. The second you make something a human, everybody, no matter how little experience they have, still look at it like, this is something. There's always something still. As close as we are. I'm very interested to see how we are 5 years from now. Every 5 years there's a big movie. And you're like, oh my God, we jumped another. You know, Jurassic Park for me was the first one. When I saw Jurassic Park, it changed my life completely. I knew I was an artist. And then I saw Jurassic Park and I was like, well, okay. Whatever the dinosaur is, I don't know if they drew it, I don't know what it is, because there wasn't a word for it yet. Computer animation wasn't a thing. You could stuff it. I just was like, I want to be the guy that makes the dinosaur. Yeah.
We talked a lot about your schooling. If you'd been at this school, what would you have done differently?
Hard to say. Hopefully, in my perfect world, if I'm in a school like this where I feel like people are more sensitive to that type of thing and offer programs in such a diversity and your own free time and time to have your own passions and actually encourage you to do it. Interesting story, right? So, Paul McCartney was going to school in Liverpool. Right? He was also going to school with, who's the other guy? Sam Harrison, George Harrison. They were George Harrison. They were in the same class together. They were in band and in choir. And the teacher decided they were no good at it and didn't let them participate. How weird is that? There was actually a teacher at one point in time who had half the Beatles in his class, and he didn't think they were talented. Well, obviously they went on to do great things. It's sort of up to faculty to identify people's talents. One of the hardest things for students to figure out is what they're interested in. It's actually a very easy question to answer. But you just need faculty to talk to students. I sat down and I actually had a conversation with a counselor one time. This is as I was ending my high school career. And he said, okay, this is it, you know, you've got another X amount of months left, you're 8 months out from graduating, what do you want to do? And like I've been saying since the beginning of my ability to speak, well, I want to be an artist. He literally said to me, what are you going to do, move to San Francisco and paint people on the street? What a dumb thing to say to us. What a horrible, thoughtless thing to say to somebody. What he owed me was to look at the environment I was in. I was in an environment where I was sort of in a farm community in the Midwest United States, in Illinois. There was no art industry. What he should have said to me was, that's great, you have talent for art. What can we do to pursue that talent? You have to be prepared to leave, just so you know. There's no industry here for that. There's not very much opportunity. There's not very many people for you to even learn from. The internet wasn't a thing then, right? He should have suggested that I go to art college. In the universe that I was living in at that time, he should have suggested that. Or go to a vocational. Right? When I was in Hollywood, before I lived here, I was teaching at the Norman School of Visual Effects. What a great curriculum. At the Norman School of Visual Effects, for $1,600, you can take an 8-week course by me or someone else and learn in 8 weeks specifically not just how to do 3D, not just how to do games, but how to do characters for games for $1,600. And be absolutely prepared after 8 weeks to make a basic game character. And then you can pursue it on your own after that, or you can keep going. And what an awesome opportunity that is, to listen to industry experts like me or somebody else who comes in. I was teaching on Sundays because I like doing it. What a great opportunity. He could have literally said, you should move to California. you should go north to Chicago. I ended up just moving out on my own and moving to Chicago to surround myself around other artists and figure out what I wanted to do. I knew I needed to do that. What he wanted me to do was what he told everybody. Look, you have bad grades. But what you need to do to be successful is go to a university, which is a complete lie. You need to go to a university because that equals success and longevity. In his mind, that's what success is. You know? Not everybody needs to go to Cambridge to be successful. Most of our heroes in the United States didn't. Every time you mention Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, the head of Sony, they didn't go to college. You know? I'm not saying don't go to college, but you should go to college if it's for you. And for me, it wasn't. And for him to suggest, for me, what we need to do, Josh, now is we need to get you into a university. The only way we can do that is for you to go to community college now, which is just a slightly bigger high school, and continue failing at what I was already failing at the last 10 years. And hopefully you'll do a little better. Why? Why would I do any better? Why would he even think I would do better? And then maybe if you do really good, you can get to a university. That's not even a plan. It's not even a plan, and it certainly isn't a plan for me. When I'm telling you what I want to do, and I have a talent for it. I don't know if that's a long answer to your question, but that dialogue is super important because for most students, school is something that happens to them. It's not something that they're a part of. And school lands on you like a ton of bricks, and it's this thing that you have to do. And it shouldn't be. And having that dialogue with someone with any intuition whatsoever to actually talk to you, that is the most important thing.